Hello everybody and welcome to week number 4. We are quickly going through the class. We're almost at midterm point, so a couple things I would suggest you do is take a look at your grade so far. If you look at your grade points through the Chapter 9 homework and the test from last week, you'll see we have 43 points accounted for at this point. So you can look at your total grades and calculate the percentage that you're getting just based on 43 points is the total that we have so far. The other way to look at that, of course, is that we have 57 points yet to do, so you've got a really good opportunity to improve your grade if that's what you see yourself doing. And the last thing I want to point out to you here is that we also have a unit, an optional test that we can take on it'll be on Friday, December 8th. It's when it's due by. It's optional from the standpoint that you can take it, and the points that you get from it are just basically added to your total. So it's a little bit like extra credit. So you don't have to take it, certainly, if your grade is where you want it to be at that point. You don't have to take the test, but it's a great opportunity for you to improve your grade at the end of the class. Okay, so let's take a look at what's coming up this week. I should wrap up last week. Let's talk about the test really quickly. By now you have a pretty good idea what the tests are about. The other tests coming up are very similar to that, so you can have a good sense of how they are laid out and what you need to do to prepare for them. So, the good news is, like I said, you've got 2 more tests coming up, and a great opportunity to improve your grade. If you have any questions about anything that as you review the test, if you have any questions about any of that, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Either ask me in an email, but if it's a question that requires some discussion, let's we can do like a Google meeting, and just give me an email in D2L 3 times that you can meet, and probably one of them's going to work. Okay, that was what we did last week. We started on looking at thinking about capital budgeting and that type of thing, and starting with Chapter 9, which is very foundational. It's the kind of thing that we use and you will use basically between now and the end of class. Very important concepts come up through the next 2 chapters, so we want to take our time going through those. Chapter 9 was all about the time value of money, thinking about present value calculations, future value calculations, and you'll be putting those to good use coming up in the next chapters as well. Let's take a quick look at Chapter 10. I'm on Chapter 11. Let's go to look at Chapter 10. Okay, so here we're going to talk about valuation and rates of return. These are very fundamental concepts that you have to understand to actually understand what the cost of capital really is. So, your objectives are you're going to want to know the valuation of a financial asset is based on the present value of future cash flows. Very important concept. You want to be able to recognize that the required rate of return in valuing an asset is based on the risk involved. That's a very basic fundamental concept that we've talked about before, and we're putting it to a little bit of use here. You want to be able to recall that bond valuation, one of the sources of capital, is based on the process of determining the present value of interest payments plus the present value of the principal payment at maturity. Bond valuations are an important thing to consider. They take a little bit of time, so take your time going through it to understand all the moving parts there, but it's a very important calculation to learn. You want to be able to explain the basis of preferred stock valuation, and also explain how stock valuation is determined, because those are other sources of capital. So that's Chapter 10. We're starting to get more into the heart of, I would say, of finance when we what we're doing in chapters 10, 11, and actually in chapter 12 coming up. Okay, so chapter 11, we're talking about the cost of capital. Obviously, it costs money to finance your organization, and so we need to think about how to value what the cost of the different capital sources that we have could be. And we want to think about it in its entirety as well. So you want to be able to recall that the cost of capital represents the weighted average cost of the source of financing to the firm. That'll make more sense when you read about it, but I think it makes sense. Understand the cost of capital is normally the discount rate to use in analyzing an investment. Discount rate is a very fundamental piece of financial calculations as well. You want to recognize the cost of capital is based on valuation techniques from the previous chapter and is applied to bonds, preferred stock, and common stock. So what we learned about in Chapter 10, you're going to refer to in Chapter 11 as well. You want to be able to explain how a firm attempts to find the minimum cost of capital through varying the mix of its sources of financing. That's probably at the heart of what financial management is in an enterprise, is trying to find ways to minimize the cost of capital required. And we want to recall, you'll want to be able to recall that the cost of capital may eventually increase as larger amounts of financing are utilized. And, that goes back to the fundamentals of risk. So, some real basic, very important foundational types of things we're going to talk about in the chapters this week. As always, if you have any questions about any of it, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And either through email, make sure your emails are in D2L. I frankly can get to those easier than I can through the Oakton emails. So do it in the Class D2L email program. And if we need to speak, we can do that too. So just give me 3 times you could potentially meet in an email through D2L, and we'll set up a time to do that, either in Google Meets, which is I learned quite clearly when we did our one-on-one meetings. That's probably the better way to go than trying to do the big blue button meeting app. So good luck, and certainly let me know if you have any questions, and best of luck.